King Collector here. You may be wondering what this is on the table. This is a 4T65 transmission out of a GM W-body car. Specifically, this one is out of a 2005 Grand Prix GTP Comp G. So this transmission is actually going to be going into my car, which is over there. And that is because, you might remember, I want to put a turbo on my car. And these transmissions, they don't like stuff like that in their stock form. So I got this one to build on. In the meantime, I can still drive my car and not have the transmission out on the table and have a completely useless vehicle. So that's why I got this one. I picked this thing up from a family member for $250. Normally you cannot get one of these for said price. Usually they run about $600, $700, usually when they're between 100 and 150,000 miles. But this one, I have no idea the mileage on this transmission. Could be 100,000, could be 300,000. But by the looks of the fluid and just the overall shape of the engine and the car itself, I would probably guess somewhere between 150 to 200,000. So the fluid is red in this thing. That doesn't necessarily mean it's good. It could mean that somebody replaced the fluid in it to try and get it to work good again. But he did say it ran and drove when he pulled it out. It shifted through all 4 gears just fine. So I'm inclined to believe I have a fairly solid transmission right here on the table. So anyways, I have a lot of stuff coming for this thing. Some of this stuff is already here, but I am still waiting on some things. I have a hardened drive chain, which actually came in the GXPs, which was the LS4 V8. It's basically just a hardened drive chain. It can handle a lot more power than the chain that's currently in this thing. It is a lot less prone to stretching when you gun it. So I'm going to be throwing that in there. And ZZPerformance makes a 300M input shaft. The 300M is the type of material. I think it's like a chromoly steel or something like that. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on that. But it's a way stronger input shaft than what's in this as well. The chain and the input shaft are the two biggest weak links in this transmission. So once I get those replaced, it should be a fairly decent one. A lot better than a factory one, that's for damn sure. So I have those on the way, and since this is an HD transmission, and the one in my car is not an HD transmission because it has a naturally aspirated 3800, they have a different, or actually this sits like, I'm trying to remember how this sits in the car. Okay, so yeah, this is the right side of the car, the passenger side right here. There is a different CV axle on that side. It's a bit thicker to handle the torque steer that this thing creates. So I have a better one of those on the way. Plus the other one that's in my car now just won't work for this anyway, because this differential case is actually different since there's a different differential in there. So I have that on the way. I have different cooler lines on the way because my car is an early 04 that was actually manufactured in 2003, September of 2003. And around February of 2004, they made different cooler lines for these things. They moved a backflow check ball inside the transmission instead of on the fitting, which it goes in right there. This fitting would normally have a check ball in it, but this one does not, since it's from an 05 and it was after that coolant line update, and my car was before it. So I got the new lines, and they should just bolt right onto this thing, no problem. The wiring harness should be the same. This is, I think, like a 24 pin. Just it controls literally everything in this transmission just on this one connector. It's right on the top of the transmission, so it's pretty easy to get to. Here is the shift lever right here. Currently that is park, and then one is all the way over here. However, being that this is a tap shift transmission out of a Comp G, it might not work correctly because they have a different valve body in them. Now I can easily get a different valve body, throw it in, and that's all you got to do to make it a non-tap shift transmission, which, yeah, so it's way more involved than that, you idiot. different valve body, different channel plate, and different fourth gear clutches, which were used in the all-wheel drive Volvo version of this transmission. Can't imagine that lasted very long, especially since these things are basically made of glass in their stock state. But anyways, yeah, it's a way more money to make the tap shift work in my car, and it's way more money to convert this to a non-tap shift. So what I'm going to do instead is take the 258 mil torque converter and the heavy duty differential off this thing, which are the only two real differences between a non-HD, which is in my car, and a standard non-tap shift HD, which was in the most of the GTP cars. It'll basically be the same exact thing. It'll work just as good and actually better because I'm putting the better drive chain and the better input shaft in it. So there you go. A lot less money, a lot less headache. It's just going to take a little more time, which is fine with me. Currently has a 305 final drive ratio in it. That is the final drive, which I believe the GTP non-Comp G cars had a 293 final drive. So it had the 329 differential in it, but it had a 37 tooth main sprocket and a 33 tooth driven sprocket, whereas the Comp G has that 329, but it's a 1-to-1, so it's a 35 sprocket and a 35 driven sprocket. I don't know what my car has in it. I always forget, but I just know that it is a 305 final drive that's in my car now, and I'd rather have this 329 final drive because that gives you slightly quicker acceleration. Anyways, I'm going to tear off this side cover and we're going to see what the inside of this thing looks like. Okay, there we are. Okay, so I believe this is the oil pump housing. I'm not 100% sure on that. I believe, yeah, you can actually take off this whole housing without actually taking apart the valve body. Okay, so I pulled out the wiring harness for it. That's sitting up there where it won't be bumped or anything. Really want to be careful with those. If you plan on reusing them, which I'm going to, probably famous last words right there, usually because they are very brittle, just from, especially at this point, 20 years later, you know, they get brittle after a while. The ATF really dries out the plastic and usually they break. None of the clips actually broke on it, so I have no reason not to use it again, so long as those clips don't break when I go to reinstall it. So, like I say, I'm not going to take any of this stuff off. You should be able to take the whole valve body assembly out without having to remove any of these bolts right here or anything like that. You will have to remove that one right there. There's also the spring on there for the shift selection, just to give it some haptic, I guess. And I need to clear up the mating surface for this new gasket. I don't know what that's from right there. Either it fell off something just over the years, or this transmission was rebuilt and whoever rebuilt it didn't catch that. So, who knows? This is just getting better and better by the second. Alright, so there is the pump, the oil pump right there. So this is the channel plate right here, and the valve body is behind it. Or no, this is the valve body, and I think the channel plate's behind it. Because this is where the valves sit, right here. Could be entirely wrong. I have no idea. There we go. Okay, valve body and channel plate are free. Throw these in there. All the bolts. Okay, so here we are. This is getting replaced with the V8 version. This is our reluctor wheel for the input shaft speed sensor. I'm also kind of documenting this for myself when I go to put this back together. I have no idea what that's for. I think that's the... yeah, I don't know what it's for. Okay. So yeah, this is indeed a Comp G transmission with a true 329 ratio. These sprockets are the same. They are both 35 tooth sprockets, whereas a GTP non-Comp G would have a 37 and 33. And my car, I double checked this, I know it now, it is also 35. So it's a true 305. Those are kind of loose. I think it's just because this is... nope, those are indeed just loose. Alright, so here's the other item that I'm going to be replacing. This is the input shaft. This is what connects this gear, drives the chain obviously, and blah 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 blah. These like to break when you when the sudden shock of power is given to them. They like to break. I think right here where this is. Either it's right there or it's right here. I don't remember. But it's always the same spot every time. So I did get a ZZP 4340 shaft, but upon asking questions about it in some forums, I got some mixed feelings on it. So I'm going to be installing the ZZP 300M instead. It's a very thick shaft. You can see this thing is like hollow on the inside, and the 4340 is thicker. This hole is smaller on it, but still people have broken them. So I got the 300M, and that's the thickest one you can get nowadays. So hopefully it lasts a while. So those are the only two parts I need to replace as of right now in this thing. I do have the chain, but I do not have the input shaft, and you're probably calling me an idiot for taking it apart when I don't even have the part to put in right after and get it back together. Yeah, I know I'm an idiot, but I'm bored, so. Plus, wanted to do it now in case I ran into any hitches, and I would have time to fix them before it got here. So, also, never figured out what this is for. I looked at the authentic GM handbook on these transmissions, and I could not find where this thing went. So it's not going back in wherever it went. So there we go. Okay, so I've just had a small change in course with this thing. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. However, basically what happened is I knew this was a tap shift transmission ever since yesterday. So the difference between a non-tap shift, which is what's in my car, and a tap shift is the valve body, channel plate, and these clutches that I pulled out are apparently different too. So in order to convert this to non-tap shift, I would have to replace all those parts. So that being said, it gets really expensive. A remand valve body is like $275, and then I didn't even look up what a channel plate is. It's probably around the same if I had to guess. And then the clutches, I don't know how much those were either, but we're probably going to be dumping an extra $500, an unnecessarily $500 into this that we don't need to be dumping into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm keeping these gears, keeping the gears out of it. Probably an extra few other parts that I might want to keep, such as that this fourth clutch hub. I might keep this around too, just in case the one of mine breaks or something. Differentials coming out. I need that housing too off of that. That's all I can think of at the moment. There's probably more stuff I need to take off of it, but for now, that's what happened. It's not the end of the world. We're just going to be tearing apart 2 transmissions now. So it's going to take a little bit of extra time, but like I say, we'll make it work. It's been done before. We can do it again. So yeah, that's just the way things happen sometimes. I thought it was a lot more simple. I thought you just had to change the valve body on it and nothing else, but turns out that is not the case. So anyways, let's carry on. I'm going to start tearing apart that differential now too, so since I need that. Okay, so there is a snap ring on the other side. You can't see it from here, but there's a snap ring holding this differential to the axle itself. Now, I thought you would take the snap ring off the normal way, but according to every forum and write-up and YouTube video, you just slam the shit out of it with a screwdriver and a hammer on the axle that holds the spider gears in. You just jam it in there, slam it with a hammer, and it comes out. And sure enough, it did. Sort of. There we go. Wow, this thing's heavy. Was not expecting that. Yeah, there you go. There's my HD differential. Seems to be in very good shape, actually. I was expecting a little more wear on the spider gears, but they seem pretty good. So this is your ring gear, sun gear, and the planet gears are on the differential itself. So there you go. There's that. So there is all the stuff I'm going to need. In the box right there, we have the diff cover, the differential, the sun gear for the differential, the 35 sprockets. I also threw in the fourth clutch hub in there because apparently these things break sometimes. I don't know why, but they do. And I also threw in the reluctor wheel because apparently if you don't swap that over with the new gears, it can give you problems, apparently, like speedometer errors and stuff like that. So I'm going to swap that over. If it doesn't look any different, then I won't. But apparently there's something with that. It doesn't really make any sense to me, but well, I guess we'll find out. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So there's all that stuff. I also am keeping the torque converter out of this thing. This is a 258 millimeter torque converter. It's a GM torque converter still. It's just a little bit bigger than the one that's in my car now, which is a 245 mil. This one handles a little bit extra power that comes from the SC3800. As for the rest of this thing, it's getting sent back to my uncle. He's the one who I bought this from. This case is going back and all the clutches in the case are still in there. I'm sending this drive chain back because there's nothing wrong with it, but with the way I drive there would be something wrong with it, and that's why I'm replacing it with the V8 chain. But if someone's desperate for a drive chain, they can have this one. It might be a little bit on the stretch side because who knows how this guy drove his Comp G. It's Comp G, so you typically drive those cars a little bit harder. So also the tap shift stuff is going back too. There's nothing wrong with that stuff, it just won't work with my car. So that's all getting sent back as well. Oh yeah, it starts now. We are going to be yanking this transmission out of here without pulling the engine. It's quite a complicated process. This is not a tutorial, period. I barely know what I'm doing, so let's do this. I'm gonna start by disconnecting the battery to remove any potential of killing things. Battery disconnected. wheels off. So basically what we got to do is remove everything that is bolted to the subframe, which is right here. So I got to remove the swing arms, the sway bar, and the rack for the rack and pinion steering. Probably a few cooler lines for stuff, and let's see what's over here on the other side. Really nothing, actually. I'm sure there's more stuff. Yeah, there's a engine mount right there, actually. It bolts to the transmission itself, so I'm gonna have to pull this cover off, get that mount out, and I think there's another one way back there. Yeah, it's right there, actually. So I think there's 3 in total, if I remember correctly. Not much to do from up here other than actually remove the bell housing bolts. And I think that's it, really. Alright, so I pulled off the sway bar end link. Also, check that out. That boot is completely gone. It's also making a lot of noise, too. It sounds exactly like the knocking sound I'm hearing on this side of the car on bumpy roads. So I bet you that's the source right there. Also, I think these struts are going bad, but, well, it's fine. Just leave it alone. It'll be okay. Anyways, I got the swing arm bolts out. Put that one back in just so it doesn't fall to the ground. Although I don't think it will anyway, because the tie rod is still connected to it. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. I need to do that to the other side now and get everything caught up with each other. And then, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Okay, so update. Got the swing arms out. Of course, that involves popping the ball joints out. Surprisingly enough, that was no problem on this thing. Hit it on the side with a hammer, pried it down with a screwdriver. Done. And both are in really good shape, actually. No play or anything in them. This one's a little stiff, but it does move around smoothly, so I'm not really concerned about it. Swing arms are out. Had to pop off the wheel speed sensor connectors because they are tethered to the swing arms themselves. So those are sitting there now. So we're actually probably about 50% of the way there, and then this subframe is literally ready to drop. So yeah, both swing arms are out. Just gotta pop off the sway bar, the rack and pinion, the 3 engine mounts, possibly a few hangers for the cooler lines. About 2, probably the transmission. There's gotta be some somewhere. This is where they come in right here. And then they run across there. I think there is a clip or 2 that holds them down. I'm not 100% sure though. We could start dropping it and see, but I don't know if I'm gonna get to dropping it tonight, but definitely tomorrow we'll have this thing out and on the ground. So there you go. Okay, I am officially out of light, but I did get the CV axles out now. So all I gotta do is just yank out the swing arm, not the swing arm, jeez, I'm exhausted. The sway bar and the steering rack and probably a few clips and the motor mounts, but as you can see it is kind of piston tranny fluid a little bit, so I got a pan under it. It was kind of light, but I still got a pan under it. That fluid is nice and red, which is really nice to see. I don't really see any nasty crap coming out of it, so that's nice. And everything is up to speed now. We actually made a lot of progress today. More than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting those ball joints to come out. Thought I was going to have to stop right there, but, well, not much more to go actually, believe it or not. These old W body cars are not too hard to work on, so Just another thing I like about them. Man, I saw that lean-to over there. You can barely see it, but the side flew open, and I thought it was somebody like walking towards me, like a really tall creature of some kind, and it scared the shit out of me just now. That was really creepy. Alright, big update. I have the Harbor Freight engine support bar up on the top here. I have it wrapped around the front top engine mounts. And I also, last night, I was in a bit of a rush because I got out of work late, but I did get the sway bar and the steering rack disconnected. And this thing is loose. Like, fully. Like, it's out. I got there were actually 2 motor mounts that I needed to get out of the bottom, not 3 like I thought. But anyways, this thing is getting really close now. There are a few little supports down there on the subframe. I don't think you can really see them. I think there's one right there, maybe. Yeah, there's one right there, and then there's a clip holding that wire in down there. Should be able to just kind of drop it forward a little bit and get easier access to that stuff and just do it that way instead. So now I just need to figure out a good mounting solution for the back chains and we'll be good to go. Okay, the chains that came with this bar were not going to work. Not that I'd really trust something this small anyway. So I got some heavy duty ratchet straps on there instead. I am fully confident that these can handle this thing. So these engines aren't that heavy, especially without the transmission, so it should be fine. Okay, so I forgot I needed to remove some core support brackets that are up here in this corner. This is where the subframe bolts in the front. Same thing on the other side. There's a bracket that goes like inside, holds the core support, which is like right here. So got that off. I think they're like 14 mils or something like that. Got both subframe bolts out. Lowered the jack a little bit, and this thing, it's ready to drop. So now we just need to be very careful not to snag anything on it. I'm going to loosen up the back bolts, get them ready to come out, and then we will be ready to drop this thing. So I gotta watch for the wires up here because I know there's some attached to it. So I'm gonna just tip it down like this, get the clips off, get all the cooling lines off, and then we'll be ready to drop this thing completely. Okay, subframe is out. Just got it out. That bolt on the far end there with the steering rack did not want to come out. Like, the bushing itself was stuck inside the mount on the subframe. So if you're going to do this, just be aware of that. That thing is going to be a bitch to get back in there. The whole thing is going to be like that. I had a junkyard jack I had lying around that I don't fully trust anymore, just to help me get it down at least. I trusted enough with this. So I just lowered each jack down side by side, kept it nice and even, that way it slid pretty much right out. So now I'm going to pull this thing out, get it all degreased real quick, and then we'll be pulling the transmission out. Okay, so this is where I'm at right now. So in order to get one of the bell housing bolts out, there's a bracket that bolts in right there in the differential, and then it holds the transmission to the block. And there's a bolt that you need to get to. You can see my extensions fishing all the way through there like that, and it's to get this bolt out. I'll show you on the donor trans. It's this one right here. See how, same thing, you fish it all the way through here to get this one out. It's an 18 mil, and you gotta get under the car to blindly align it. I got it in there, so hopefully it cooperates with me. So I'm about to take out the last bolt on this thing. I'm gonna get the ATV jack ready. And underneath it, yes, I'm using an ATV jack to take this thing out. It's basically the same thing as the transmission jack, so it doesn't matter anyway. Get that under there. Line it up with the thing. This thing's been dripping transmission fluid the whole time. I was dripping it overnight as well. Okay, just got it just so it's touching it. That way it doesn't come crashing down. I don't think it would anyway, but it takes some stress off the torque converter and the crankshaft. Okay, it's time to get this out. Get this 18 mil out, and then this thing should crack open when I put the pry bar to it. There you go. Had to bring it out through the side. Basically just dropped it down and then pulled this thing back like that. And it came out. Had to lift out the car a little more too, but there you go. The transmission is out of the car. Now it's time to build it right here. Doing it right here. Alright, popped off the diff cover. There's the original 305 diff. It is physically smaller, I can already tell you that right now. Now all you need to do to get this thing off is find the screwdriver that you lost. There's a screwdriver that will work. It's not the one I was using, but it should work fine. Stick that in there like that. Give it 2 whacks. That's not supposed to do that. I need both hands for this. There we go. Just needed to give this axle some help, and that popped out. Look at that sung gear. That is a big sung gear. Here is the difference. The other sung gear is right here. Look at the difference in that. This one's way smaller. There you go. So that'll slide on. Oh shit. Hold up a second. There's a tapered end and a non-tapered end. So I need to figure out which way it goes on. Hold up a sec. Okay, I just paid for my stupidity and I messed up the case. I cracked it. You can see it right there. Very small. It's not cracked all the way through, so this is still going to work. However, I'm not going to permanently use this case because I don't trust that. So I can still put the transmission in the car, and I can swap out this case with it in the car, so I won't need to pull this again, and that's why I'm doing this anyway. But I need to drive this car on Monday. I absolutely need it. It's crucial, so I'm going to run this case anyway, but I am going to change this out. So the groove side on the sun gear, groove side goes in, not out. Very, very important. So flat side is out like this. So yeah, don't do what I did and try to tighten it anyway, because I thought it was just the new seal I was putting on this, because yes, I changed my mind. I'm putting a new seal on this. I thought it was just a seal because it was dry. I was kind of fighting it a little bit. Turns out that was not what was happening. So yeah, groove side in, and this thing seats perfectly with the groove side in. I don't know why there's a difference, but there is. So just make sure you do that. It's very important. There we go. The case is on. That crack is still visible in there, but it did go on pretty nicely this time. So should be okay. These 2 bolts are part of that bracket that you had to take out, so that's why those aren't on yet. But other than that, it's pretty good. So once those bolts get put on there, it'll seal up completely. But for now, it's going to be like that. Alright, now on to the other side. Side cover's off, as you can see. We need to very carefully pull this stupid plug out. I forgot to clean it up before I took off the side cover, so some sand got in there unfortunately, but should be okay for the most part. You really can't avoid it anyway. It's just part of it, so you just gotta make sure that when you go put it back together, it's at least mostly clean. Again, these things have filters in them, so it's not the end of the world, but it's still better just to not have to worry about it at all. So I'm gonna grab a paper towel, put something underneath this, and then kind of blow that out a little bit. Alright, so here we are. There's part number 1 that's getting replaced, and part number 2 that's getting replaced. And then this transmission is going back together and back in the car. So it's relatively simple at this point. We just have to remove the oil pump shaft, like so. Put that wherever you want. I'm just going to put it on my makeshift bolt organizer right there. Then I'm going to pull on the reluctor wheel right here, like that. There's our reluctor wheel. That measures input shaft speed. Have a different one of those going in, as you might remember. Although I am going to compare them, and then if they're the same, I'm putting the other one in. And now, we gotta somehow get this out. Alright, the new ZZP 300M input shaft is in. So on the input shaft, there's a O-ring right there, and you gotta remove that to get it out. So I did that. Put the new one in, put the O-ring on it on the other side. It's a new O-ring, obviously. Don't want to put a used one in there. Otherwise, you could face problems with your torque converter lockup, and you don't want that. So, alright, that's in. I'm going to replace all these gaskets because they're not really doing so hot. So, these are going to come off, and new ones are going to get on. Okay, so the ZZP shaft is in. I just need to put on the snap ring on it still, but other than that, the V8 drive chain is in as well, the Gemini chain. You can see how much tighter that one is than that one was. The one in that transmission over there was really loose. I'm surprised it didn't jump teeth, or maybe it did and I just don't know about it. But anyways, there you go. Just need to get the snap ring back in there, and then we can get the new gaskets on and put it back together. Then it goes back in the car. And there you go, reluctor wheels back on. They are the same reluctor wheels. Now I'm wondering if the only difference is in the GTPs, because the GTPs are like a, this is like a 33, no, this is a 37 tooth sprocket, and this is a 33. So I'm wondering if only those are different because of this gear being different. But between the Comp G transmission and my transmission, since they're both 1-to-1, 35 and 35, this wheel is the same. So I'm wondering if that's, well, that's more than likely why they're the same. So anyways, I have some new gaskets that are going on these things. I don't know what those are even for, but well, these are metal gaskets. They're very high quality versus the whatever the material it was, some kind of composite. So anyways, gonna throw these on, throw the valve body back on, and we should be good. Okay, it's now dark. Got the valve body and channel plate back on. Aligning those fourth clutches, I would not wish that on my worst enemy. Holy shit, is that a pain to do. Because if you have this thing even slightly skewed, it pushes those clutches off the hub, and you have to do it over again. There's no way around it. It is the stupidest design I've ever seen. Then again, GM is not known for their transmissions, so does not surprise me. Anyways, this is on. There's 2 bolts holding it on, so I don't need to worry about it falling to the ground. It should be completely safe. So I'm going to get everything else back on and get everything finalized, and hopefully first thing tomorrow we can start getting this back under the car, and hopefully it does transmission stuff still. It probably won't, but well, guess we'll find out. Okay, so for those who have done 4T65s before, you probably noticed that I forgot to install the oil pump shaft. So I get to retorque everything now. I had this thing all together, and then I realized something was off, and I noticed that was missing. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Also, there's another thing. Putting this thing on and trying to get these clutches aligned, of course, like I said, I would not wish it on my worst enemy. It's still a poor design, but something that makes it a lot easier is picking up some M6 by 1 by 75 millimeter bolts. Grind off the heads, and then you got yourself some guide pins. And it makes it so much easier to get that on correctly. So, plus it also keeps the gaskets in place as well, especially these metal ones. So if you don't have any kind of tacking agent, then these help a lot. So everything looks good. All the gaskets are aligned, and now I can finally just get this thing back together and back in the car. Okay, well, it's about 8 hours later. Transmission is back in the car now. Got the dipstick back on. I recommend you try to keep that on when you're installing a transmission, because I did it without it, and it is a pain to get to after the transmission is in. So if you can do it, that's great. It makes it a lot easier. But anyways, this was very difficult because this car is on an uneven surface. In case that wasn't obvious. Well, you can't actually really tell on the camera, but yeah, there you go. Now you can kind of see it. It's at quite an incline actually, so what I had to do was bring it in with that, just the same way I took it out. Start jacking it up, and this bell housing bolt, the top one in this back corner, lined up, but the one that ground was connected to down, come on, where is it? Down there, that one right there was low, because the engine is tipped back like this and the transmission is going in like this, so that corner was lifted up. So what I had to do was grab another ratchet strap. I don't know where it went. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, it's right there. Nope, never mind. Yes, there it is right there. So I had to grab a ratchet strap and hook it around that bolt right there where the grounds are connected to. Hook it around this thing and start ratcheting it. That way it rotated the transmission like this, and I was able to get it in by complete sheer just dumb luck. I got that thing aligned perfectly, so I was able to bolt it in. I got the converter bolts on, so it is fully connected to the engine now. I got the shift linkage back on. The wiring harness is plugged in. I just got to connect these grounds, and the engine and transmission will be one whole unit. That's all I'm doing for tonight though, so we're gonna have to continue this throughout the week. Today's Sunday. I'm working a lot of overtime this week, so I don't know how much time I'll actually have to get this going, but I'm gonna get that done now. That way all I gotta worry about is getting that subframe back in. I won't even have to touch anything else. Alright, so this thing is fully assembled apart from the wheels. Axles are in. You can see I got the new HD axle in there. Swing arm's back on, sway bar's back on. Everything's mounted. Got all the grounds connected up here. Transmission wiring harness is connected. Linkage is connected. I can't see that down there anymore because of the intake, but that's all connected down there. I do believe, yep, it's in park. So I threw about 3.5 quarts in there, and the dipstick says full. We are in an angle though, so I think this transmission takes like 7.5 total. So it should be enough to at least get that pump started and flowing. Then I can add more to it as it needs it. So I'm going to put my funnel back in the neck, and we're going to fire this thing up for the first time in almost a week. Been working a lot of overtime at work, so I really haven't had time to actually be consistently working on this thing. This thing is also disgusting. I never let this thing get this dirty. It is absolutely disgusting right now, just from sitting for so long. And I also forgot, I need to actually tune the PCM for the new final drive. So, gotta boot up this 13-year-old computer here, plug it into the OBD, turn on the key, and get it tuned for the 3:29 ratio. However, just, of course, perfect timing. I don't know what it's doing, but well, just gotta sit here and wait for it, I guess. Because if you don't tune it and it detects a wrong gear ratio, which it will throw a code for that if it's tuned for, say, the 305 in this case, and I put a 329 in it, it will throw a error code, and it will say like incorrect final drive or something like that, and it will peg the transmission temperature, the pressure, the fluid pressure, like all the way. I think the max on this transmission is like 96 psi. It'll peg that all the way to 100, and it'll just shift really hard and really bad. And plus, we also have the shift speed, and it'll like shift probably too early in this case. Yeah, I don't know that for sure. But anyways, that's why you gotta kind of like get everything calibrated first before you even like try to do anything. So anyways, gonna wait for this stupid thing to finish whatever it's doing, and then I'll get it tuned, and then we'll fire this thing up. It's running and it's moving. Put it through reverse and everything. I'm just trying to let the fluid make its way around. I don't hear any bad noises or anything. The pump isn't whining or anything, which is a good thing. Both wheels are moving. I got the PCM tuned for the new 3:29 ratio, so I don't see any error codes. So far, so good. I might put the wheels on it and get it around to a more even surface so I can actually reliably check that fluid. Alright, so it's been about 7 days since I got this thing fully reassembled and driving again. I sent it to an alignment shop yesterday to get the wheels straight on it, because when you reinstall a subframe, it could be slightly tweaked a little bit to what it was like before, and since your control arms are connected to the subframe, they could also be tweaked, and it just messes everything up. So you really should get that done when you do something like that. So got it done, drives straight and good. Shifts through all 4 gears nicely. Torque converter locks up like it should. Has not given me a single issue yet. I plugged HP tuners into it. Temps are reading normal at about 170 to 180, which is right where it should be for something like this. I do plan on putting an auxiliary cooler on it, but well, I don't really need to do it right away. And well, I'm not putting a ton of power to the transmission yet, so I don't think it's really necessary yet, but we will do that eventually. But shift times are also normal, 0.1 second, 0.2 second, which is good. That means the solenoids are working exactly how they should be working, so that's good to know. So yeah, the 329 gearing really makes a difference on these things. If you're debating on doing that or not, if you want a car that's very like jumpy and quick, I recommend you do it. Yes, it's probably going to kill a few miles off per gallon, but I personally don't mind that at all. I'm surprised to see it was ever a factory thing to have 329 gearing, like true 329 final drive, because that's what came in the 05 and 06 Comp Gs, which is what that donor transmission was out of. It was out of a 05, so 1-to-1 sprocket ratio, just like this car had originally, just now with a 329 differential in it. So it is a true 329 final drive. The regular GTPs had like a 33 to 37 tooth sprocket plus the 329, and that made the true final drive like a 293 or something like that. So it was actually deeper than the 305 this car originally had. But now we have a shallower 329, which again makes a huge difference. Yeah, just crazy to know that that was a factory option. I don't know if you could custom order it or not, but I was still shitting in diapers when these cars were new, so I could not tell you personally. Anyways, yeah, it's driving good so far. Gonna put probably 1,500 to 2,000 miles on it before I really start actually beating on the thing, because you know, you want to make sure your new parts are breaking in properly. Don't want to send a bunch of shock to it and just mess everything up. So been driving it back and forth to work, and it has not given me a single issue at all. So I would like to keep it that way for now. So yeah, not much else to really say, but this was my first automatic transmission build. Never done it in my life before this. It's nice to see that it so far is paying off. So bugs, so many bugs everywhere. This is the problem with springtime in Michigan. May in particular, they're always bad in May. But yeah, like I say, it drives good. There's third gear. And fourth gear. So yeah, it hasn't shown any signs of giving me trouble. It has not given me any trouble, and I hope it stays that way. So anyways, that's it for the first part of this build on this car. Next thing coming is probably going to be the turbocharger. I haven't really decided in whether or not I actually want to do that next. Obviously want to make sure this transmission's actually like 100% solid after I just cracked it open and started messing with it. But other than that, I want to get this car a few inches lower. ZZP makes a lowering spring and strut combo that I'll probably throw in this thing. Could probably use new struts anyway, new shocks anyway. So probably throw that in. That's like another $600 though. And the turbo kit itself is like $3,000. So obviously that wouldn't come for a while anyway. So and apart from that, some cosmetic things need to happen. The front bumper is all cracked and stuff, which it's either replace it entirely or go with the Inferno kit, which is what I'm doing. There was a show car back in the early 2000s. It was called the Inferno Grand Prix. I think the car still exists today. I don't know where it's at, but haven't seen any new like images of it. But it has a new bumper on it, new hood, and new spoiler, which are a lot more pronounced, I guess I should say. The bumper has a color matched front lip on it and everything. The hood has vents on it, and the spoiler is a lot more pronounced. It's a lot higher profile. So yeah, it just makes it look way more like aggressive and sporty and stuff, which I like. I like retro sporty cars like this. So yeah, those are all things that are still going to happen with this, which I do want to do a few interior things as well. There's a company that makes like accent lighting and everything like that. Just like you see it on a lot of newer cars actually, where they have like lights in the door handles and stuff like that. I want to put one in this little storage unit down here, as well as some in the door pockets as well. And I want to see if I can get like the door reflectors to light up too, which would kind of be cool, I think. So yeah, still plenty of things to actually do with the car. Obviously, we didn't build a transmission for no reason, so yeah. Anyways, that's probably going to be it. We're going to start focusing on some other things like the MB200 and stuff. That project is coming to a close now as well, unfortunately, so we're going to have to find some new stuff to do. Might do a revival on a go-kart that I actually have hidden away. I don't think I've ever shown that on this channel before. Has not ran in probably like 5 years, so we'll probably do something with that. I want to get rid of it, just get some extra cash in my wallet. So anyways, we'll cross all those bridges when we get to them. And that's going to be it for this very long video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment if you'd like as well. And yeah, that'll be it. I'll see you guys next time.